Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Relationship Podcast brought you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Gloriann Rivera. Welcome back to another relationship podcast. In today's episode, I will be talking about dating someone with a mental illness. I'll start talking about the challenges that you may have with this person, and then I'll talk about how to support them, how to deal with them, and how to cope with certain situations. Later on, of course, I will be telling you some stories, and finally, I'll be talking about the challenges that we are facing on dating new people on a pandemic. We all know somebody that has a mental illness. It's either a family member, a friend, or a partner. Their mental illness doesn't affect them, but it affects the ones that they love as well. There are different types of mental illness, but the most common are depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorder. There are other mental healths that are common, but the ones that I want to focus on today are depression and anxiety. Someone that has this type of illness may change their moods, their personality, and even insulate themselves from the world. Having a mental illness doesn't mean that the person is crazy. It can be caused because someone has a biochemical imbalance in their head, or there's a history of mental illness in their family, or an environment of stress. Some of the challenges that you may face with your partner is that there's going to be a lot of misunderstanding between you two, because at one point they can be fine, and then in the other they're overthinking and their mood change completely. Another thing is that your partner with a mental health feels embarrassed because of their condition, and if they don't try to seek for help, they try to hide the signs or having a mental condition because they feel ashamed. It's more because of the taboos that people have with mental health, or about mental health, better said. And it's like if the person is going crazy, or they have to treat them in a certain way when it's really not like that. Meanwhile, their partners wanting to help gets frustrated or confused, and it's more because they don't know how to help this person. Sometimes it's difficult for a person with a mental health to do things. Like, they don't do their daily tasks, cleaning, cooking, going to work, taking care of their kids, or taking care of the dog, something so simple like that. They even have a lack of hanging out with friends or with family members, and even with their partners, especially when they're depressed. In this case, it's different for some partners because they want to do something fun, like going to the movies, a road trip, or going to eat with that person, or, a family event, and the person with the mental health is not feeling it, or they just want to stay home. And obviously, this can cause a lot of tensions and discussion between the couple, between you and your partner at this point. At one point, you feel like you're disconnecting yourself with this person because of their condition. Having a mental illness can even put a wedge between you and your partner, and even being intimate with your partner, it's gonna be a problem. Either because of their condition, or because they're getting help, their medications, their lack of intimacy just lowers down. And if it's a person with anxiety, they start to overthink, like they're not good enough, or they get subconscious about their body, and it makes it difficult for them to bond with you in that way. Meanwhile, a person that is depressed is just not in the mood to have sex with you, or in the mood to do anything. You can't really take it personally. It's just how their brain is working. It has nothing to do with you. And I know having your needs unmet can cause another problem in your relationship, because you start to feel like you're not loved, or you're not getting attention. Obviously, this can lead to other problems, like having your self-esteem down, or cheating on your partner. Another challenge can be that the person with mental health depends so much on you that you feel that you need to take care of this person. And in some cases, the partner feels that they need to stay with this person, and it's dangerous sometimes because you can get easily manipulated and the relationship becomes unhealthy. How does it become unhealthy? Well, obviously, once they start to manipulate you, like, oh, please don't leave me, like, oh no, today I'm not feeling good, can you please stay? And you already had plans with either your family or your friends. That can really cause the relationship to be unhealthy because you start depending on them as well to do things, and then your friends see that you're like always being with your partner, and that becomes a bigger issue because if the relationship doesn't work at one point, you're gonna break up and then you're gonna feel alone. So that's another thing why it could be a manipulation. And again, it's not their fault or your fault. It's more because of what's happening in their head that they really don't have control of what's happening. And I'm not saying that having a partner with mental health issues is gonna be unhealthy all the time. What I'm trying to say is having a partner with a mental health can be a healthy one if you both know how to cope with the situation and have a clear understanding of what that condition can bring to your relationship. You guys have to keep those communication doors open. Everybody is different. A person with depression can either stay home all the time or not do anything, and it affects the way they feel. Everybody is different. A person with depression can either stay home all the time and not do absolutely anything, and that can affect the way they feel, think, and act. Or they can be really happy all the time and have a normal, healthy life because they know how to hide their symptoms from their partners, friends, and family. An example of that, I can say that it will be Robin Williams. He was so happy, he was always making jokes, and he unfortunately he committed suicide, and it was because he was depressed, just like Kate Spade and a lot of other celebrities. And I'm pretty sure if you have a history of depression in your family, it's one of the things that breaks a person. The fact of if they don't get help, they get more and more depressed, and they can be in a severe depression and then commit suicide. Having depression doesn't mean that the person has had a bad life or that you're making their life complicated and that's why they have depression. No, they can have a good life and still get it. Having depression can be really hard, but the person can get better and enjoy life. Having depression can really be hard, but they can get better and enjoy life with the right help. People with anxiety get nervous/stressed every time, causing them to have panic attacks or anxiety attacks. The difference between them is that the panic attack is an intense feeling that they feel like they're gonna die. All of the emotions are running through their head or running through their body, and they feel like they're getting out of control, and that could last like a couple of minutes. And an anxiety attack, it's worrying about something that is in your imagination, and it can last longer. They are both unexpected. So obviously, that's why when somebody's having a panic attack or an anxiety attack, you have to be really, really careful on how to deal with this person, because they're going through a lot of things that either they can't breathe or they need to talk to somebody, and you have to really be supportive with them, and understand them and try to talk about something else so they get distracted. Once the panic attack or the anxiety attack passes, they feel much better, and that makes them see that they can rely on you. It could be a friend, it could be a family member, it can be even your partner. It really doesn't matter. If you know somebody that has a mental illness, it doesn't matter if it's your partner or somebody else. You always have to help them and be supportive, because having a mental health, you don't know obviously how severe it is, and it could lead them to harm themselves or harm others. That's one thing that it's really important to be nice to everybody, because you don't know what people are dealing with. The reality is that a lot of people are either gonna suffer, have suffered, or are suffering from a mental health issue. And according to the National Institute of Mental Health, 1 in 5 can suffer from a mental illness. One thing that you need to have clear is that being with someone with mental issues is having a lot of patience and you wanting to be there for them. One thing that you need to have clear is that being with someone with mental health is a lot of patience and maybe even a lot of experience with this situation, because being with somebody that has a mental issue, it is challenging at some point, or even all the time, because you always want to support this person. You know, it doesn't even have to be your partner. It could be your mom, your dad, your grandma, or a friend, you know, your best friend, or somebody that you're really close with. You know, this type of people need support, and somebody that understands them, and somebody that is going to be there for them and not really, and not leave them in their time of need. Because that's how they feel. They feel alone, but at the same time, they want somebody that they can call when they're ready to talk to. A person with mental health can have a healthy life once they get the help that they need, and of course have a support group. You know, a support group, meaning like a group of people, you know, like their parents or their close friends and their partners. Either therapy or taking the right medication for their, you know, biochemical balance can help them a lot, and can help them in their relationships and how they react to other people and how other people react to them as well. Everybody at one point in their life can have a problem with mental health. Next, we'll be talking about how to support your partner that has a mental health and how to cope with that issue, and that it won't affect you in a negative way.
The GSMC Sex Podcast is a show that examines all aspects of sexuality, from physical to emotional to spiritual. Join our hosts as they discuss age-old questions, common misconceptions, and the latest topics surrounding sex. They'll tackle topics about sexuality from the complicated to the hilarious and everything in between. GSMC Sex Podcast is your show for all of your questions about sex, even some you might not have thought of yet. Download the GSMC Sex Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you can find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back. At the beginning of the podcast, I was talking about the challenges that you can face or have with a person that has a mental illness. Now, I'll be talking about how to support your partner or your friend or your family member and how to help them, just like how you can cope with the situation. Having a mental health can be a challenge because it is hard to have, and to deal with it, it's even more challenging. When you're in a relationship with someone that has a mental condition, it's challenging for you as well. If you are with someone that has a mental illness, you can do different things to have a healthy relationship with them. One thing that is very important is that you have to educate yourself and understand their condition. If you educate yourself or want to educate yourself, there's a lot of organizations that can help give you resources and information about it. Being in a relationship is not only understanding them, it's about understanding what they're suffering from, especially with a mental illness. You can be judgmental. That's one thing, and I know it's difficult because I know that us as human beings, we can be really judgmental. You need to be a really good listener, and remember that they're sharing something really personal that can be difficult for them at first because obviously they don't have that trust with you yet. So you're gonna need a lot of patience, and you can really pressure them to talk to you. Another thing that is really important is that you have to offer them a lot of support. It's important to comfort them and telling them that you're going to be there for them so they can keep progressing in their health. They need a type of goal for them to keep progressing with their mental health, keep going to their therapy and keep, taking their medications. Giving them space when they need it. Sometimes they just need time to think and they don't want to talk about the problem. And that happens to people that don't even have a mental health. It's like you have a problem or you're in a really bad mood. You just don't want to talk about it at that moment, at that time and moment, because obviously you're gonna explode or try to kill somebody. Anyway, give them space when they need it. And of course, they're gonna talk to you once they get through it. One thing that you as a partner need to understand is that it's really difficult for them to act. It's really difficult for them to act normal if something's happening. One thing that you as a partner need to understand, that when there's a difficult situation going through, like let's say a fight that you guys had, or him or she had a stressful day at work, or she had a discussion with a friend or a family member, the word is not overreact, but they really can stay calm. They will express themselves the way they think it's better. And you can really say to them, oh, hey, stay calm, because that's going to make the situation even worse. Because you need to try to, I know it's going to be difficult, but you need to try to be calm and not try to make the situation difficult for them, like yelling or telling them negative comments, because that can make them go back or have like a step back in their progress, because obviously they're not gonna feel that you're supporting them. And I know that it's difficult because all of us express ourselves in different ways. But you as a person, you need to really relax and stay calm, because it's not only with your partner. Again, you don't know if one of your friends, they're going through a mental health situation and you don't know about it, and then you explode and something happens between you guys, and then that person starts crying, or that person tries to do something that you're like, okay, whoa, this is not normal. So that's one thing that you have to understand as a partner, is that once they're in a difficult situation, the person with a mental health is going to react much different than you. If this happens, again, you need to stay calm and try to make the situation and try not to make the situation more difficult for them. I know that it can be frustrating because you want to express yourself the way that you want. One thing you have to understand is like they're trying to understand how to express the right way. You have to do the same. But anyway, the point is, I know that it can be frustrating, yes, because everybody has their own way of handling things, and it's difficult to be with someone that can really stay calm or takes things like out of proportion. But again, it's just they're trying to be better, they're trying to progress and try to change those ways. Something that is really important that you can't really forget is that you're not their doctor, and you can be their doctor. Yes, you can give them all the support you want, but it's your partner who is responsible of taking care of their condition, not you or their family members or their friends. It's them and only them. You just need to love them and have that sympathy with them, especially with the efforts that they're doing to get better. You always have to give them that emotional support as well. They need to take responsibility for their condition and how that condition affects their relationship with others, not only you. Being with someone that has a mental illness, yes, it is challenging and it can be a challenge, like I said in the beginning, but as well as they need to take care of their condition, you need to look after yourself. Supporting your partner, it can be difficult, but you can't really be afraid of talking about your feelings with your partner and with a therapist as well. Going to therapy doesn't mean that there's a problem with you. It's so someone can listen to you and give you guidance and in a perspective that you're dealing with in any situation, even with your partner, your family, or your friends. It doesn't really have to be dealing with your partner's mental health. If you have been in a long-term relationship with this person, you can even try couples counseling. It can help both of you not be in a toxic relationship and not blaming the things that happen on each other. If you need a break, that's fine. Self-care is always important. If you don't, you can risk yourself to having a mental illness as well. Try to have your alone time. You can go to the gym to release the stress that you have, talk to a friend, go to the movies, spend time with your friends and family. You just need to keep an open relationship with your partner and say, hey, today this situation is intense for me. I'm going to take my time. I need some time off, or not time off, but I need my time. I need my space. I will leave you alone. We'll talk another day. Try to be really honest with this person, because I know it can be hard, especially because a person with mental health, if you say that to them, they're going to act in a way like, oh, it's my fault. Or they're going to start thinking like, oh, it's my fault, when it's not. That's why you really need to have an open communication with them. And at the beginning of the relationship, be really honest. Hey, I haven't been with somebody that has a mental health condition. Or, hey, I haven't been with somebody that has a mental issue. This is going to be a new process for me. You have to give me time. And when I need my space, you have to be really honest with this person. And if they overreact, I shouldn't be saying overreacting. If they express themselves in a really explosive way, you have to understand as well. As I said, you need to keep an open communication with your partner so they don't feel that they are the problem. And you need to be clear. And you have to be clear that if you want to be in a relationship with someone that has a mental illness, you need to think to yourself, okay, am I ready for this? Am I capable of dealing with this type of situation? Or if you guys been together for a long time, you need then to support them and be honest with them. If you need to take a break or if you need to get that space, you have to tell them. Relationship is about compromise and going 50-50 all the way. You need to have an open communication with your partner and have a game plan. Someone with mental health can have their good days or their bad days. With therapy, they can have a normal life. Having a mental illness doesn't have to stop them or has to stop you. It is to work on it, and you as a partner is to understand and remember to check on yourself as well. With that said, I'll be talking about the stories about people that have depression and anxiety and how their partners have coped with it and even helped them.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back again. You heard me talk about the challenges of being with someone with mental health and how to support them and cope with the situation as well. Now I'm telling you two stories. The first is how one of my exes dealt with my mental illness, and the second one is about one of my friends that has a relationship with someone that has mental illness. Okay, so I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety, and at the time I was in a relationship. And for me personally, it's really difficult to communicate. And the fact that I was diagnosed with it was even harder to tell my partner, my family, and my friends at the time. Because I didn't want them to think that I was crazy or that something was wrong with me. Obviously, at the beginning, I had a really hard time coping with this new diagnostics, we can say. Because I knew that my mom, even though she wasn't diagnosed with depression, I knew that she had it because she always stayed in bed all the time and wasn't really motivated to do anything. But in my case, it was just different because, I still went out, did things, but at one point it was like I was changing my mood. So that's why I went to a therapist. And once I went to the therapist, well, obviously, she told me, okay, so you have depression and anxiety, and started asking me all of these things like, do you know what it is? Do you know it's really common? She really was a really good support. And obviously, once I started going to therapy, she told me like, okay, so I need you to go to a psychiatrist as well, because we need to medicate you. Because I was having like a lot of anxiety attacks. So she was just worried about me. And so once I started to take the medications for my depression and anxiety, at first I couldn't find the right medication for me, because I was either not acting myself, or the medications, to be honest, were too expensive. So it was a real challenge for me to find the perfect medication for me. Taking the medications, obviously, once I found the right one for me, I felt better, and I didn't have a lot of mood swings, basically. And obviously, my partner, in the other hand, was supportive of the beginning, but it was a challenge for him, because sometimes I wasn't in the mood to go out, or if we had a family event, he wanted me to go, but I wasn't in the mood, or I went just because, well, I made plans, we have to go. But I was apart from everybody, and his family always asked him like, oh, what's wrong with Gloriann? Or he just wanted to protect my privacy and didn't say anything to his family, because he thought that it wasn't his problem to share. It was more a thing that I needed to tell them. But obviously, again, I wasn't even comfortable saying it to like my family. Why would I be comfortable saying it to his family? At the beginning, obviously, there was a lot of problems with it, because even though he was being supportive, he really didn't knew how to deal with the situation at the same time, because he always wanted to know what was wrong with me, and I just wanted to be alone or just have my space and not talk about the topic, or like distract myself with something else. And he was always like wanting to talk about why was I mad, or why did I have this mood. And then if I didn't talk to him when he was ready, he got mad. He got mad, or he got grumpy, and it was just complicated at the beginning. He obviously was trying to help, but the fact that he didn't know how to do it, how to really be there for me, created a lot of tension between us. Especially when we spend like a lot of time together, and then when I started taking the pills, it was like, he called me up, hey, I'm going to your house, or hey, do you want me to pick you up? And it was like, yeah, no, I want to stay home tonight, or yeah, no, either I wanted to stay home, or it was like, yeah, of course, no worries. And then when he took me back to my house, it was like, oh, I don't want you to go. Like, it was just different emotions. It was a roller coaster ride at the beginning. Then when he started to spend time alone, or start to respect my space, and then he told me like, okay, so I'll hang out with, I'll gonna go hang out with my friends, or okay, no worries, like I'll stay in my house. Like I could, the mood changed completely, and I was like, but why are you not, why are you not visiting me, or why are you not seeing me? And it was like, Gloriann, you're telling me that you need your space. And it was just like a mood swing, obviously. Again, the roller coaster ride. When he then spent time with his friends, I felt like he was leaving me. And obviously I started to feel like I was the problem. And that was obviously at the beginning of my depression. I really didn't know how to manage the situation. And it was his first relationship with someone that had a mental health problem, because in his family, there wasn't a history of mental issues, or if there was, he really didn't know about it. And again, it was his first relationship being with somebody that had depression and had anxiety, and for him was just a big challenge. Then at one point, like I stopped going to therapy, and I just stuck to my psychiatrist, and I was just taking my meds, right? This was like maybe in the middle of our relationship. So once I was getting my medication, I wasn't really going to therapy and talking to someone. I wasn't really going to therapy or talking to someone so they can give me advice and guidance on how to deal with my depression and anxiety. So obviously, when I'm, fighting or had like a discussion with my family or my friends or even my partner, it was just taking everything in and not really talking to nobody. And then when I exploded, like if I told to my partner something, it was more difficult because it was like, okay, but why didn't you tell me this at the beginning? Or why didn't you tell me this sooner? It was a real challenge for me. And the lack of communication that my partner and I had at the time, it was just adding more problem to our relationship. We decided to break up because I needed time for myself. I was learning how to manage my depression, and obviously even though he was really supportive at the beginning, he just couldn't deal with it anymore. It was too much for him. So obviously I do understand, but once we broke up, it was really hard on me because again, I was going through depression and anxiety. So the fact that this person left me, it was like, okay, I started thinking different things like, oh, I'm not good enough. This is gonna control my life. I started feeling like I was the problem when honestly it was just miscommunication, and we really didn't have a bad relationship. It was just the fact that I didn't know how to manage my condition, and he didn't know how to manage, the whole situation of being with somebody with a mental health. So anyways, we broke up, and obviously the years have passed, and we still see each other, and we are polite to each other. And he always, every time he sees me, he always asks for me. He always asks about my mental health, like how am I doing, and if I need something, that he's there to help me. He's always been there, to be honest. He's never been not supportive. It's just the fact that he couldn't really deal being with somebody at that point. Because as I see it now, obviously for him it was difficult because in his family, it was basically like a perfect family. Their parents had really good communication, but then, they always, if they had a problem, they always talked about it. They were always there. And for my understanding, again, I'm repeating myself, but for my understanding, he knew of, he didn't have like any mental health, history. So it was just a new challenge for him. And it's, now it's, things happen for a reason. So you just have to breathe in and, and suck it up, Anyways, to tell you the second story, it was a whole different experience, or it's a whole different experience from what I went through. One of my friends, he started to date this girl that was really honest with him at the beginning, and she has depression like me. And at the beginning, she was like, hey, I have this, like, are you literally she asked him like, okay, so I have depression. Are you willing to deal with it? Because I do have it under control, but I have my bad days, I have my good days, and my bads are really bad, and just like my goods are really high. So he was like, yeah, of course. He obviously knew how to deal with depression because in his family, there was somebody close to him that had depression. He saw how it works, how to deal with it, and how really to be supportive. They've been together for many years. And since the beginning, they've had like a great communication. They've had great communication with each other. And it's because she expresses herself in a way that I get in shock. She has this so control. And she has her mental health issue. She's the one that controls it. It's not that the mental illness controls her. She controls it. for him, obviously at some point they've had their challenges because, again, it's depression. You can be really good for a couple of weeks and then go downhill and just not feel yourself, being like, oh, I don't want to, like you're not good enough. So for him, it's been a challenge as well, because obviously he always needs to be talking to her. And, they have their doors of communication really open. And something that he tells me is that I don't communicate, and he's like, he tries to deal with me sometimes and he gets frustrated because he's like, okay, you still don't know how to control your depression, and it's still a work in progress. You can be a strong independent woman or you can be a strong independent man and get depression and just have those bad days. It's really, having depression and anxiety, it is a process. You can have 20 steps ahead, and then one day you can go 40 behind, 40 steps behind. It's this game in your head that you don't really know when you're gonna have a good day or you're gonna have a bad day. One thing that, if your partner has depression, one thing that they have to do is keep their brain healthy, keep their brain distracted, going to the gym, releasing that stress, or doing a hobby, doing something that they like, that they can really distress themselves. Is that even a word? That they can even, be themselves and just relax, and not obviously thinking about, okay, I have to do this, I have to do that, blah, blah, all of those things that, they have to just get out of their daily routines. And everything, being in a relationship is just a challenge, and then being with somebody that has a mental illness, it's even more challenging. But obviously you and your partner just have to stay positive. And of course you're gonna have those bad days, because we all have bad days. Even though we don't have a mental illness, we all have bad days, and it's normal. It's part of being a human being. So for now, those are the two stories that I wanted to tell you. And when we come back, I'll be talking about dating somebody new, especially in a pandemic, the challenges that you may face, and, different things that you can do in a pandemic when you're dating somebody.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Last and finally, for today's episode, I'll be talking a little bit of how to date someone new in a pandemic, the challenges of being in a pandemic while dating, and how to make it fun and entertaining. Dating is a struggle and a challenge. We all know that. The fact that we are in a pandemic makes it even more challenging at all. When you start talking to someone new, you start asking them questions to get to know them better, like their work, hobbies, their opinion on something that's happening in the world, or what do they think about a certain topic, and see if you have like a potential future with this person, or if you want to keep talking to this person. Basically, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we all need to be careful and stay safe. If you want to see someone or hang out, you need to be cautious about it, because you don't know if they are around other people's and if they're taking the right precautions to keep themselves safe. To add more to the pressure of dating, we can say that now you need to ask this person if they're willing to take a coronavirus test just to meet in person. And obviously you'll need to have this talk about if you guys do see each other, how are you guys going to do it? Like wear a mask, social distance, or take a test and risk it and see each other. And then now you have to do all these new things that we're obviously not used to. And again, COVID has made it more challenging for single people to date, because obviously you don't want to get sick or expose yourself too much to get the virus. And if you get exposed to the virus, you don't only get it yourself, but you give it to other people as well, including your family if you live with them, or even the people that you live with, because you can have your roommates. Of course, there's another way to see each other and get to know each other. Video call is one of them. During the pandemic, a lot of people have been using their phones and their computers to get in touch with family members and friends. Many singles have been struggling to meet new people because they can really go out, and if they do, they can have the risk of getting exposed to the virus or even getting the virus. Obviously, many of them have created an account in a dating app just to meet someone new. And yeah, I've been one of those persons. So yeah, I'm single. One of those persons that has been affected by COVID in the dating world. And obviously, once you create a dating app, it depends on the dating app. The thing is, the people that are in dating apps, it's either for fun and nothing serious. And obviously, you're not going to risk your health for something fun and casual. You either want something that will last a little while, especially in this time of COVID. And obviously, that's why you always have to make it clear from the beginning what you want. And, tell this person like, hey, I want to be in a relationship, or hey, I just want this to be something casual between you and me. We don't have to be serious. Make it clear to the person and say like, hey, I want something casual because I don't want anything serious. But obviously, due to COVID, I do feel that I don't want to risk myself and I don't want to be with a lot of people. Just try to be honest with this person. I know that it's difficult because you don't know them, but one thing that you just have to make clear now, it's what you want, especially in this time. If you do meet someone, you can always obviously text them and call them. And when you're both ready, you can either video call to see each other face to face, virtual face to visual face. It's something that we need to be that we're supposed to be doing just to keep everybody safe. Either is his or her family or your family, you just need to be cautious. And if you start talking to someone because you guys hit it off, you can do different things. Fun dates. One of those things can be, obviously you can watch a movie or a TV show and you guys are in different, he's in his house and you guys are in different places. You can literally download an app in your computer where you can live chat. You're seeing the movie or the series in your laptop, and there's a funny scene. You can obviously like comment to him and he can comment back. And obviously it's a fun new way to interact with this person, and that can honestly even help in a long distance relationship. You can play video games online together or on your phone if you have iPhone. You can see each other outdoors and meet in a park, in a dog park if you guys have doggies, or going to the beach and having your social distancing. Obviously, you have to take advantage of the social distancing situation because, again, you can see each other, but you have to just be cautious because let's say you meet in a park, you have your mask on, they have their mask on, and obviously you can see each other and spend time together, but being safe. When the pandemic started, I created an account for this dating app, and mainly I created it because I was bored. I matched with a couple of people. There was this one guy that I was talking to that at the beginning, he was interesting, and then I can say that we talked for a week, and we exchanged numbers. He was really nice. When we started talking, he was here in Florida, and obviously he was living with his mom at the time. He's from Georgia, or he was living in Georgia, but he came down here to Florida to help his mom out during the pandemic. So we hit it off, and we hit it off. we made different things. We saw each other on video call. We called each other. We played games. We watched a couple of movies together. And it was really interesting because it was something new for me. I've never done all of these things like in a video chat. I felt like I was in a long distance relationship. And obviously when I told him to meet, if we could meet, he was like, no, I don't feel comfortable because I'm living with my mom and my mom is high risk because of her heart condition, which I totally understood because again, guys, this is at the beginning of the pandemic. So we really didn't knew the whole virus situation, how was it working. So obviously he didn't want to risk it. And I totally understood, especially when, again, at the beginning of the pandemic, if you got tested for COVID, if you got tested for COVID, it was a whole deal. The labs were really packed, and let's see, if you get tested like today, Monday, then you get the results like a week later, or not even get your results. It was really crazy at the time. So I understood completely, and especially when I work at customer service, so I was dealing with other people. He was trying to be cautious, and which I understood, but we still keep talking. We still got to know each other a little bit better, and a couple of months passed, and I tried again to see him, and I told him like, hey, do you want to meet up? Obviously you told me about your mom. I totally understand. We can social distance, or we can see each other at a park, and we can even go to McDonald's, you in your car, me in my car, and we can see each other and have like a dinner date, but obviously in different cars with our windows down and talking. Once again, he said no, again, because he was really scared at the beginning, because obviously, if you get the virus and you're with somebody that is high risk and you give this person the virus as well, it's a 50-50 chance with them. It's either they survive the virus or, they pass away. So obviously he didn't want to risk it, which again, I understood. At this point, to be honest, I gave up. It was the second time he said no. I just gave up. So I wasn't really like texting him the same or calling him or anything, but he was the one who was like calling me and saying like, hey, want to watch a movie? Hey, or sending me games. We were doing different things. He told me that he'll see me once he leaves again for Georgia. So the day came, he was going back to Georgia, and he really never told me the date that he was going. He did it really last minute. So when he texted me that he was leaving, I got really pissed off. So I never got to see this person. And we were talking like for 7 months. So he went back to Georgia. And once he was in Georgia, we still talked. We still saw each other in video call. But the thing is, obviously, when he's over there in Georgia, I guess he felt the pressure that he was like in a relationship, or he felt like he was more in a relationship. So he obviously broke it off because he didn't want to be in a long distance relationship, which I can understand completely. We're in a pandemic, so we can't really see each other. And so yeah, I basically lost my time. But again, we don't have to see it as a loss. We need to see it as an experience. I need to see it as an experience. And yeah, that was my experience with COVID. But anyways, that's my experience dating in COVID for now. And obviously, the fact that you're dating someone new in a pandemic doesn't mean that you need to change your life. Once you feel comfortable with that person, you can always tell them to get tested, and you can see each other in person and go to restaurants or to their house, and be more intimate. Normal dating relationship situations that happen. The rules of dating someone still apply even in a pandemic. Talk to each other, you find common interest, you get to know him better, get to know their hobbies, get to know what they do and what they study, what they work, different types of things. If you're starting to date someone new, or if you're starting to talk to someone new, you don't you obviously don't talk about your past until you're more comfortable into the relationship. And obviously you can compare them to your ex, because if it didn't work with your ex, why would you like to be with someone that is like him? No, you start, no, you get someone that's different, obviously. So this is the end of today's episode. I hope you enjoy the podcast and that you remember to be patient with your partner. And if you're a single person, be patient during this time of a pandemic. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Relationship Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask you to please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.